Hello guys, we are live today for Carnivore Team GB of myself, Jonathan from Carnivore Muscle, Phil Escott from Big Fat Challenge. Also check out the website below, that is written on the screen right now, ancestralhealthfestival.com. You'll be able to meet, I believe, all of us at this event in due course of the next month or two. We'll ask Phil about it in a second. Just want to introduce Coach Stephen, the UK Carnivore, and Lee Coppus, Kent Carnivore, aka Jordan. How are you guys all doing today? Also, Phil, let me know about the dates of this festival.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, mate. Well, it's the 17th and the 18th, and it's in Rainford, which is kind of not far from Liverpool, I suppose. But you can get down there on the 16th and leave on the 19th if you want. But just please go and check out that website now, ancestralhealthfestival.com. because there's some lovely videos on there. I've packed the page with videos, everything from a 5-minute intro with all of the guys talking with their little quotes about why this is so important to do live events, all the way through to the little mini interviews I did with all of them and full podcast interviews and everything else we've got going on. And we've got, honestly, it's chaos at the moment trying to organize it. We've got so many people who want to come along and do demos at it and have stalls and whatever, and some of them are a bit too woo-woo for me, but I'll have to choose my words in declining them. But I think it's going to be lovely. I don't think it's going to be massive, but I think that's cool. I think it's nice to have access to the speakers, as Stephen said on the interview I did with him, just to be able to ask people afterwards, corner them and talk to them and whatever. But yeah, for a live event, loads of music, see me messing up on the drums. Actually, I don't do that too much anymore, but you never know. The band's on, everything's on, lots of great food from about 4 different locations on the site, the pub itself, the marquee, and 2 lovely sort of grass-fed stalls that we've got. Cook all your own stuff on a fire pit, sit around late at night with Daz. You can't stop him. He'll be playing his guitar and singing, and lots of ancestral stuff. Be part of the tribe. Come along. Check out the website. Thank you, Jonathan. I'm done.
Cheers, Phil. Yeah, I'm also going to be attending that one. I'm going to be bringing my big older brother, who's actually smaller than me. So it's going to be great fun. So you guys get to meet him. You'll have a good time, put it that way. But yeah, just an update, guys. So anyone that is watching this right now, it is a live Q&A. Some of us respond to questions after the fact. I don't, because this is the live Q&A. Be here, be square, be fair, whatever. Anyway, it's currently 7:06 p.m. UK time. Probably about 2 o'clock in the afternoon for a lot of the US viewers. And we're going to be answering some questions now, so please leave a Q in the chat below. Even better yet, on any of our channels, doesn't matter whose, any of our channels, feel free to leave a super chat, a super sticker. We'll happily answer that one in prioritized order. But we're going to go through the chat now. I'm just going to see what's going on. We've got a new channel member. I believe that's on my site, so I appreciate you joining Aeronautics. Thank you very much for joining as a channel member. I believe both myself and Stephen have the option of joining as channel members. Lee may or may not. That's an option you guys do have if you want bonus content, priority responses to comments, things like that. And we do oblige and we do acknowledge them. So I appreciate that very much. So if you want to join as a mighty sausage on Stephen's, or you want to join as a meathead on my channel, just let me know. Go through, below each of our videos on our links, which will be on the screen. Now, you'll see that we can actually entice you with our great content. I know Stephen's got lots of great content behind the scenes sort of stuff, which is really cool as well. Anyway, I'm going to get to the chat now, and if you guys do have any questions, please also let us know. Apparently, I've said something online on the internet, apparently. So let's read what Carnivore Muscle has to say about cardio. Yeah, you won't believe the fact that Carnivore Muscle said cardio kills people, lol. I work out all the time and I'm still alive, both doing strength training and cardio. What a grossly misrepresentation, red herring of what I have actually said and what actually is said in that video and what actually is on the thumbnail. It's actually the title something like deadliest form of cardio. That is that is on the thumbnail. It says deadliest form of cardio. Yeah, there is obviously a spectrum of what cardio, what diet, what supplements, what drugs will kill you quickest. If you take 100 paracetamol, that'll kill you really quickly. It'll kill you much quicker than doing an hour on a bike for a week. So, you know, yeah, I was accurate to say that in the thumbnail. And we did depict quite clearly the mechanisms behind what the deadliest forms of cardio were, and also the sports in which they were involved in, and that was endurance sports, funny enough. So there we have it. You're more likely to die being, I don't know, I won't use an example because it's not very nice to speak about elite athletes like this, but an endurance long distance runner versus a sprinter like Usain Bolt. So yeah, that's what I did actually say, but appreciate you popping on and having a great time in our chat, which absolutely benefits our algorithm, which means we get more clicks, more people enticed into viewing, which means we can spread more information about the carnivore diet and sensible practices and diet, exercise, health, and any sort of related topics that we can speak with expertise on. So I appreciate that. If you guys see any questions in the chat, please let me know, because I'm struggling a bit to see anything. I may have missed something, I don't know. But Ribeye Rob said hit the like button. Absolutely, definitely essential. Definitely. And speaking of us,
talk a little bit more about cardio?
Yeah, I could talk a bit about cardio. Yeah, so the problem with endurance cardio is it's in that zone 2 range. And the zone 2 range is the range that you can withhold for a long period of time, which means there's no stop button, there's no forced stop, there's no default braking mechanism. So much so in comparison to something like sprinting. If I do a sprint, God forbid, I'd probably kill myself, then there'll be a stop. That I cannot sprint forever. Therefore, the hypertrophic response in the left ventricle of my heart. The heart, by the way, guys, is about up here. It's not down here. It's about up here. I know because I've seen it, measured it, looked at it, picked it up, all sorts. Anyway, that left ventricular hypertrophy response will be to a lower degree if you stress that muscle to a lesser extent for a shorter duration of time. So it comes down to minimal effective dose, minimal effective exposure to get the most result. Now, if someone is using a endurance diet, perhaps with a ketogenic diet, yeah, they'll probably live longer than their Western dieter counterparts that aren't doing any exercise at all, because there's more taurine in a carnivore diet, which protects the heart against the oxidation, and also the hypertrophy response that you get from the training is to a lesser extent. Evidence to support my claim comes from the fact that that's been measured mechanistically, observationally in studies with both rats and humans, where they've actually found people that took more taurine in their diet no longer had the risk, or such an elevated risk, of LVH. I'm going to use LVH now as an easy way of saying it. Other evidence to support my claim is that I've done the test myself. I have a normal size heart for a 6 foot, just under 6'1" male, weighing my current body weight. So that tells me I'm very healthy, normal. Other than that, no weird heart things, no weird heart rhythms. They checked me out loads of times, enough to sort of say, yeah, I don't have any issues with my heart. Touch wood, I'm going to maintain my current diet, training, minimal effective dose, and just not do too much to increase the size of the heart. Problem with the increased size of the heart is your blood pressure will begin to drop lower and lower and lower, in which case you can get to a point where your heart will actually just stop. Transversely to that, if you immediately cease to do endurance exercise, your heart can also stop, which does happen to people, and it does cause heart attacks in some people. The risk I couldn't measure, I couldn't say. You'd have to look into it yourself, depending on your certain circumstances that you're in within a given time. But I mean, it might be good for me to go around a poll now and obviously introduce other people to this subject and perhaps get their viewpoint. Now, we'll go around from Phil to Stephen to Lee, then we'll switch up and do Lee first the time after. But I want to ask you guys, what you think is like an effective amount of exercise per week, whether that be cardio or resistance training, a bit of both. Like, is there a minute bracket? Is there a timed threshold you think is optimal? I'll start with you, Phil.
Well, obviously the first one is that, cardio and weight loss. People always think, eat less, exercise more. And I remember the many years that I did about an hour's cardio a day and watched my calories and all of that crap, and it never worked. And the first abs I got was lying on the sofa doing nothing and cutting all the carbs at 50 years old. Like, that was 12 years ago now. It's amazing. So I think that cardio, I never really see anybody enjoying it. So why bother? Somebody in the chat here said, ancestrally, we never did it. We never went for a jog. Who would even think about it? Who would bother if they were in good shape? You see these people pounding the pavement year in, year out, and they don't seem to be having that much fun. But somebody else said, what about mountain biking? Is that bad for you? Well, I don't know. I think mountain biking is so much fun. I used to do tons of it. I used to write for the mountain bike mags. And I think I've probably ridden every mountain in the Lake District several times, and some all over the country, and in France and Jamaica and everywhere. And I absolutely loved it, and that is the reward for slogging up a mountain with a bike on your back, isn't it? Just coming down the downhill and scattering ramblers like poultry. Marvelous fun. So if you're having that much fun and you enjoy it, what the hell? It's better to live to 95 and enjoy yourself than 100 and not enjoy yourself. Does it make that much difference? I agree with Jonathan. I think that a lot of the time, really excessive cardio can hurt people. People are saying in the chat, so I know people who smoked and they were 100 years old. Does that make smoking healthy? I don't think smoking does what we actually say it does, but presuming it is unhealthy, yeah, of course. Would they have lived to 150 if they hadn't have done all the Tour de France stuff? I don't know. They're very, very genetically gifted people, very low heart rate, great tolerance for exercise. I have no idea. All I say is if you enjoy it, go for it. But if you want a reasonably muscled body and to be able to just do everyday things as well as possible, then I'd say resistance training is far superior. I got far more out of when I owned a gym and trained sort of 10 minutes 3 times a week than I ever did out of years of mountain biking. But I had more fun mountain biking. So I don't know about the science of it. I just think if you enjoy it, great, do it. If you don't enjoy it, don't bother with it. And if you want to stay reasonably optimal, then you just need very abbreviated training, taking it to failure a few times a week. It takes more science than that if you're competing. So talk to Jonathan about that. I never did. But yeah, just enjoy it. And if you don't do it. What the hell?
What's your take, Stephen? So it feels of the stance, if you enjoy it, do it. But if you don't enjoy it and it makes your life a living hell, waking up 5 a.m. to go for a 3-hour run, don't do it. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the reason for my background there, those medals are for middle distance running. And this one over here is me winning a singles tournament for tennis. And they're 2 very different sports. So the first thing I always say, I offer personal training. What's your goal? Now, if you said to me, I want to look like Jonathan, I want to be muscly, the last thing I'm going to do is ask you to go and run 26 miles within the next 6 months, learn how to run 26 miles. And the reason I use that is because that is a very visual thing to do. If you look at a sprinter, they are running short, explosive sprints, and they're muscly and they're cut and they're lean. And if you look at a marathon runner, they look like they need to eat a good meal, but they're both fit in the sport that they have chosen, right? So someone running 26 miles, can you say they're fit? Of course you can. If they run it very fast, but what they've done is the training response. Now, many average people, and I include myself as average, I'm not a special person in any way, shape or form. If I want to grow muscle, I would not include cardio because it's cross-cancelling. Because if we keep that in mind, that sprinter and marathon runner, that's what the body does. If you start lifting heavy weights, low repetitions, very heavy weights, and time under tension, very short workouts, they're still explosive in parts. Your body is like, right, we need a really strong structure. We want really thick bones. We want these joints to be fantastic, to be able to be levers to pick up these heavy weights, right? And then you go straight out onto the road and you run 13 miles. And your body's like, whoa, hang on a minute. The body we were trying to build this morning is not the body we're trying to build this afternoon. Because now this guy wants to have very light muscles that are got a lot of endurance, and we need bones that are very thin and light that can still do this repetitive movement that doesn't have a lot of resistance. I'm not getting into joint injuries and all that sort of stuff. I'm just using that initial starting point. So you need to know what your goal is. Most training, actually, and Jonathan was very interested about the heart there. You don't really change your heart. You don't really change your lungs. You change your ability to get oxygen into the cells. And that's a key thing to remember. That's actually what you're doing, which is why your pulse rate goes down, because what is your blood, what is your heart rate doing? It's transporting oxygen, amongst other things. So if you suddenly get really good at putting oxygen into your cells, you don't need to pump your heart so often. It isn't that the pump is super efficient, or the heart, I know some people don't even think it's a pump, but the heart has suddenly become super efficient. It's not that, because the heart is pushing the blood out, however you want to see it, doing that, to give oxygen to the cells. That's what matters. So it wouldn't go down if the oxygen wasn't getting to the cells, because the feedback system would say, well, thanks very much, you've lowered your heart rate. There's even less oxygen to get into the cells. So if we look at what it actually does, that's the first thing. Secondly, Phil used the word excessive. Right? Excessive anything is bad. Excessive resistance training is bad because of the word excessive. So you've got to put in recovery. And it is harder to recover from a 13-mile run than a 40-minute hard session in the gym. And the rule of thumb, and this is really, I know this isn't very technical, but after a 26-mile marathon, the rule of thumb is you need 26 days to recover. That really is never carried out, because it's just not feasible in this world. People don't want to do it either, and that's the thing. So if you go onto ChatGPT, I know this is like the thing, right? And you say, what is the damage you could do from cardio? You will get ChatGPT like correcting you and saying there is no damage. It's really good for you and stuff like that. If you're looking this up, you have to actually go the extra mile. Now, even in their first answer, and I've got it up on here, it says, however, it is essential to note that excessive endurance cardio without proper rest, nutrition, and variation in exercise routines can lead to overtraining, injury, and other health issues. So once you start to get your information and question it with a critical mind, right, okay, what are those other health issues? That's why I asked, what are the other health issues? And there are tons. So I think it's just getting the right medium. And yes, what Phil said, what Jonathan's pointed out, there's people in the chat saying, well, my dad's been running, 10 miles a week, every week, and he's 90 and he's fit as a flea. Well, you will get people like that. And they are the exception. That's why that's pointed out and special. Because if everybody at 90 was running 10 miles a week, you wouldn't say it. So there's always exceptions to this, but generally speaking, cardio is not going to be as good for you as resistance training for your long-term health. But if you want to run a long way as quick as possible, then it's the appropriate training program. Whether that's going to keep you in good stead in the long term is debatable. Don't forget, I also did a decade of rehab. So I've seen a lot of knees, ankles, feet, backs, shoulders, which mainly, kept me in business was the fact that they were runners. And I was a runner. Right? So I got a lot of work. Why did I stop running? Because when I was going to sleep, my left knee would be so hot and inflamed, couldn't sleep. So I gave it up. And that was before I did Carnivore. Maybe if I gave up, if I was running now, maybe I'd be able to do it because I'm eating Carnivore. It's less systemic inflammation, more essential fats, maybe. But I think, let's just look at the reality. Resistance training is more ancestral. how did we catch animals? Well, we didn't catch animals by chasing after them for miles and miles and miles. We worked in teams, and we can see this in modern day tribes, and we know this from sort of cave paintings and research, that what would happen is, because animals don't sweat like us, they have to pant. You would chase an animal, and because humans have got a brain and they can use tools, they'd chase them to a section, and then there'd be another group of humans to chase them away from that section to another section of the, tundra or savannah or wherever it is, and then they would chase that until they were absolutely knackered. And they'd be easier to kill, because humans have a brain and they have tools. They don't need fangs, by the way. They don't need big teeth and claws and stuff like that. They have the ability to think these things, which chimpanzees actually exhibit, and there are animals that do this sort of thing in the wild even now. So that's what we've been doing in the past, sprinting for short distances, then resting, sprinting for short distances. So that sort of sounds a bit like HIIT training to me. We pick heavy objects up, so it seems to me like resistance training is more natural as well. Exactly the thing that Phil said, sorry, one last thing, was about running for fun. Whenever you see any documentaries or books about people that go and become part of a tribe, if they are a runner, when they go running for fun, they're all the tribe basically is quizzical. They don't understand, why are you doing this for fun? They really don't get it. So all the tribe, and I've read that about three different authors that have done this. Bruce Parry, I think, was one of them. It was basically saying running for fun is not a thing that tribes think is a good thing. They just find it completely odd that you are exhausting yourself with no end goal. You're not going to come back with an animal. You're just going to run out there, come back and be completely shattered, and it makes no sense. And when you look at it like that, it does make no sense, but if I ran out and I caught some dinner, that makes sense, total sense.
Great stuff. Lee, do you want to chime in? Also, you got a super chat I'll just chuck it on the screen just so he gets mentioned. But
yeah, no worries. Yeah, appreciate that. Cheers. It reminds me of that third Back to the Future movie. Run for fun. What the hell kind of fun is that? That reminds me of that. But yeah, I think really we're designed to do things, and we should try and be consistent with how we are designed. So we're designed to lift things heavier than a remote. We are designed to move. But the way we move, obviously, we're on our feet. We're going to take long walks, tracking, and brisk walks. And I think, we're going to have short sprints and things like that. And so, we're not like setting ourselves goals like for how many miles can I run and how fast can I do it, like taking the laps and just going around and around. It just seems pointless, wasting all that energy and pushing yourself like that. Really, when you're out in the wild, you're going to rest, you're going to hunt, you're going to feast, you're going to sleep, recover, and then you're going to do it all over again. Why would you want to start running marathons, So it doesn't make a lot of sense. And so just from an ancestral standpoint, I think we're built, I think walking is great, sprinting is great, and lifting objects that are heavy, but in a natural way. Do you know what I mean? Practical, functional type of movements. That is for health anyway. And that's really all I've got to say about that.
Nice one. Absolutely. I agree with all your points, guys. We've dug into that one quite deep, I think. We'll move on to the next question now. Next question is, it's not a question, but I thought it was quite funny. TMI warning. I just had a hell of a time on the phone. My rear end is in tatters. Tatters, guys. I don't know about oxide dumping, but I know what high octane dumping is. That's a real BP oil spill, if you know what I mean. Excellent.
This is the technical term is Armageddon, I think.
Yeah, that's it. I need to find a way to press. There we go. Well, there we go. You can see Stephen now. Yep. I'm happy with that. Okay, that works. That works better. You can see Stephen. Has anyone else noticed an increased level of satiation when eating grass-fed beef compared to grain-finished? Us guys from the UK can't really speak on that because our food is mostly grass-fed already, and the chances are all of us probably eat the same sort of quality food roughly. The main thing is the fat composition. That's what we're most focused about when we're talking about grass-fed versus grain, that sort of thing. It's what's in the fatty acids. The fats what store the toxins, but also a lot of the fats are all vitamins as well. So you might find some difference between omega-3, omega-6, stuff like that. Just to give a brief outline of what's going on there. In terms of satiety, we might be able to make some extrapolation and some comparison between, if, for example, we ate a chicken thigh, which with the skin on it, so that's, I believe, about 50-50, so about, I don't know, 100 grams of it cooked will have about 25 protein, about 25 fat-ish. That's probably going to be the most equivalent to a ribeye. Now, could I eat a ribeye, 100 grams, and eat 100 grams of chicken thigh with the skin on, and be satiated the same? I don't know, if I'm honest. I like to eat both because I like food. But if you guys notice difference when you've had, say, one meal which is, even if it's just lean, I mean, chicken that's lean versus beef that's lean, or lamb versus beef, like, what's the most satiating food for you? And obviously the fattier foods will be more satiating, but say you could equate each protein source to be the same fat.
It's funny because as soon as he said that, just recently, Chart Farm that I go to, they've just started stocking for maybe a fortnight grain finished in addition to the grass fed. And I walked in and I thought, wow, is that like the most marbled ribeyes I'd ever seen, you know? And they'd said, right, yeah, we've now getting some grain finished, which is for me a little bit disappointing and a bit worrying. You think, oh, we're not going this way, are we? We want to just continue with the regenerative style of farming and having grass fed, grass finished meat. Anyway, out of curiosity, I just bought one of each because they stock both. And so there was a clear difference. One's clearly leaner and one's got all this marbling and stuff like that. I ate the grain-fed, and for whatever reason, because I used to quite like the sort of corn and this kind of stuff, that flavour, I didn't really get on with it at all. I didn't like the taste. To me, the fat was like watery. It was like rendered down a little bit. It was soft, and the flavour was weird. I'm used to now this really earthy, genuine product, and I was like sort of sick of it. I was like, this, you know, really quite almost disappointed. So now I go in there, I have to specifically ask, can I have grass fed? You know, because I know that there's like, they've got these logs there. And so for me, it's strange because you think, like, is it again another factor where I've specifically eaten grass fed meat for so long and pastured eggs, high quality stuff, only wild fish when I eat fish, that now going back to eating some corn and grain, now I've triggered some extra sensitivity where I've desensitized again. I'm not sure. Because you think Michaela, she's very sensitive, Michaela Peterson, and she does well eating mostly grain-fed, grain-fed, grain-finished. And maybe, again, if she converted just for a while, a period of time on grass-fed and then introduced it back in, maybe that would be a similar thing. But for me, it's interesting. I do much better on grass-finished. I can eat, about a kilo's worth. There's no way I could have eaten a kilo's worth of that grain-finished. There's just no way. I didn't enjoy the experience, the flavor. Everything in my body was telling me, no, I don't want to eat much of this. So I had the grass one afterwards and thought, God, there's no comparison. Grass finished all the way for me. So yeah, that's just something that's happened down at Chart Farm quite recently. So I've almost done that experiment. So yeah, I agree.
Well, I'll add a bit to that. That was great. I think there is too much emphasis on satiety and less on satisfaction. Leah's just sort of verbalized exactly how I feel, because as soon as I read that, I thought, well, nothing beats a grass-fed ribeye for me straight off the bat. That's what came to mind, and that's telling for me. Chicken with the skin on, chicken thighs with the skin on, is like a treat. But I don't sit there thinking, wow, I'm really, full here. I'm really stuffed. I just enjoy food. And I think that's one of the things, getting back to the ancestral thing, I don't think if you've got a chance to kill an antelope or megafauna, and it's 50-50, you're going to go megafauna, aren't you? You're going to go for what's going to feed the tribe rather than just yourself. So we eat what is most appropriate at the time, I think. And what Lee just alluded to there about the fats, I could have a ribeye that's grass fed, and I can have a grain finished ribeye. So it's pretty much same cut. I would not eat the fat exactly the same from the grain fed. Doesn't taste the same. I had this with rump steak. All right. So sorry to the Americans who don't seem to have rump, because they cut their animals up a little bit different to the people in Britain. But anyway, rump steak is like the bottom, the arse end of the animal, and it comes with some fat on it normally. If I have it grass fed, the fat is beautiful, so I'll eat it. If it comes from grain fed, I won't eat it. See, so what's that? What's the difference? It isn't satiety, it's actually satisfaction and taste. And we have, olfactory nerves, and we have taste buds to tell us what we should be eating, what we flourish with. And I think Lee's hit the nail on the head there. The fat is very different in grain finished. So I'm going to get less into this satiety. I know it's a big thing on like the Diet Doctor now. They've gone off the rails and they don't know what they're talking about anymore, and they're really pushing this satiety sort of number. That's irrelevant. I think carnivore is about food quality, nutrient density, and it's also about enjoyment. If someone comes on and says, I don't like beef, none of us go, oh, it's the best. I'll eat lamb then, or try chicken, or duck. I know it goes against the grain for a few people, but there is an element of enjoyment in food, and you're not going to stick to it if you're eating stuff you don't like. You're not going to. You've got to enjoy your food.
Yeah, one thing that stands apart to me is if we look at satiety, there's a satiety index number. It's shown in different studies, and what they found is white potato, I believe it's boiled and cold, was the most satiating food. Apples were also very high, beef, animal foods like that, high protein, that sort of thing. The problem is that satiety, okay, they measure it within a certain window, but who the hell wants to eat a fucking white potato on its own? Without butter, without cheese, without, chicken or some sort of meat with it? No one wants to eat it. So I know exactly what you mean there, Stephen. It makes perfect sense. This enjoyment factor seems to be a lot more of a potent thing than just, the number on the scale says this, therefore we should eat this much fibre. Well, if we eat that much fibre, we'll be ill. Not a good idea. I'm sorry, Phil, carry on. What's your take on it?
Well, the satiety thing's interesting. It's been carnivore so long, I think I've lost the desire or the sort of addictions to other foods, and so my tastes are kind of subtle in that, to me, chicken is junk food. I'll eat it once in a blue moon, but if I ate a ribeye sized bit of chicken, I would not be satisfied, because I think the body knows how many nutrients are in there. So I see it even with our cat, who has no addictions, right? He's only eating raw food. You give him a load of chicken, he'll eat a load of it. You give him some liver, he prefers it. He really gets stuck in, but he might leave half the plate because he knows that there's that much nutrients in there. And it's somewhere in between if I give him beef. And it's exactly the same with me. But I totally agree with Stephen as well about the sort of grain-fed fat. And you get sort of a normal supermarket ribeye or whatever. And the fat is a little bit of a Bush Tucker challenge to me. It's not very nice. But if you get really good grass-fed beef, I remember it came home to me 4 or 5 years ago, and we got this massive great rib roast for Christmas, and they gave us a load of fatty offcuts as well. And I thought, that's too much beef fat. I can't eat that. And it was absolutely delicious. And I've just done it. I've made some tallow with some grass-fed fat that we get, big hunks of it. Just before this, I had to rescue it, actually. I almost burned it. But, tip the tallow off and get the little crispy bits, and they're just amazing if it's really good fat. But I can't imagine that with the crap fat. However, in England, I've never found lamb fat that I don't like. I think it must be just much better quality, or they get grass-fed more, or whatever it is. But lamb fat I love. I could eat that all day long. But, yeah, the satiety of it, I don't know, just to me, it's all about nutrient density. And so I can eat way more chicken. That to me is like Pringles, like, the old cancer in a can, and the advert that once you pop, you can't stop, because there's no nutrients, and they've got that perfect blend of addictive seed oils and starches. And for me, chicken is kind of similar, and it doesn't sit well with me, so I really hardly ever eat it, once a month, if that. But yeah, to me, I would say it's all about what you like, and definitely that grass-fed stuff. It's like when you buy tallow. I always say to people, yeah, tallow. Somebody was asking in here, is butter okay to add fat to meat? Well, it depends if you're autoimmune or not, and there's a lot of points of view on that. But I would say animal fat is much better. And people buy tallow. The only tub of tallow I've ever bought commercially, I threw away. But I eat tallow all the time. But I make my own, because I go down to the grass-fed place, get a load of grass-fed fat, make it into tallow, and then I'll add that. I don't mind buying supermarket meat, but for somebody who's got a really high-fat diet, I'm weird in the supermarket. If I do have to go there, I will be looking for really lean meat, because I know I've got that much fat at home, and I can avoid the fat from the from the regular stuff that they put in the supermarket. So that's a bit of a waffle, but there we go. That's kind of my rambling take on it.
Yeah, nice one. I appreciate it. I think we've covered that one nicely as well. So we'll move on to the next question. This is quite an interesting one, actually. And it's, well, we've all spoken with lots of different carnivores, so we know roughly what the average person's eating. And it's not what you see on the thumbnails, guys. The generic steak, or it's not reality at all. So what are the downsides of eating ground beef compared to steak? I see many carnivores eating steak every day, even though ground beef is way cheaper. Thanks. I'll quickly say, because I don't want to be on this one for more than 5-10 minutes in total. Most people that I know of, I've worked with, eat ground beef. Whether they're from the US, whether they're from Australia, the UK, I'd say about 90% of what they're eating or more is ground beef, because it's cheaper. There's a lot of people that eat a steak a day. These people are very, very rich people, guys. I've spoken to some of them, and they can afford bloody quail eggs for every meal, with salmon roe, caviar, everything they want. They have no issues sourcing elephant meat if they wanted to. But they're few and far between, these people, guys. I'm not saying eat an elephant. I don't really know. I couldn't really talk about that myself. But yeah, not many people do eat it. But the downsides of ground beef: likely to be aged longer, slightly higher risk of infection, salmonella, things like that, various different pathogenic bacteria, potentially. Potentially less taurine if it's been hung for longer. So less of the sulfonic amino acid. Perhaps perhaps more potential to have more moisture in it. If you're buying it from a dodgy country or a dodgy source, maybe they're jabbing it a little bit, especially if you buy like minced beef burgers with sodium by fucker, what's it called, thing. The other thing with ground beef, guys, is that when you get, I don't know if it's like this in the US, but in the UK, if you look below a lot of the packages, the plastic boxes where you get your 500 grams of minced beef, there's a little sheet in there, and that has a chemical sprayed on it. I think Liam might know about this, but it has a chemical sprayed in it, and it's not ideal to be consumed. So they're, certain, this would be a sort of apple crumble sort of talk sort of thing, but they put stuff in food which doesn't mean it's good for you, which is not ideal, long story short. But look into that one, guys. But yeah, I'd definitely be, if I had it my way, I'd be buying steaks from the butcher or the farm shop. I get a lot of my meat from the farm shop. And that's, lamb, veal, venison, goat, beef, chicken. You can get all that stuff from it takes about 10-15 minutes now, but it used to take me 5 minutes to walk down there. So you can acquire good food if you source it out. So that's where I'd go in the UK if you were concerned about the quality of meat and stuff like that. And anyone else that wants to chime in, guys, feel free to.
Yeah, I really like to do that, because I will give you a different angle, and that's the whole beauty of the panel. That's the whole beauty, right? I have people that don't like the ground beef, so I've been doing meal plans with cheap cuts, like braising steak. You can have a braising steak, beautiful, for about £3. Seriously, really lovely. It just takes a bit longer to cook, because if you cook it like a ribeye, then it's going to be tough. But if you just put it on a lower temperature, cook for a little bit longer, you get a beautiful steak. So I'm going to play devil's advocate here, because I have a lot of clients say, well, I'm not doing well with the ground beef. One of the things is if you fry it, there's a lot of rendered fat at the bottom. So if it says 80-20, so 20% fat, you're not getting 20% fat, because a lot of it is rendering out. And for some people, they get gastrointestinal problems with the rendered fat. So I often advise them not to tip it back onto the ground beef, but to add butter or something like that, or tallow. Or whipped tallow. So you can get cheap cuts. You can get, like I say, braising steak. I've done Denver steak, bavette, and you can get chin steak, skirt steak. All of these are about £3. The equivalent for a ribeye is about £9. So you can get steaks. The disadvantage of ground beef is it's from different animals. So it's not from one cut. And that can be problematic. And just going off on a subject very slightly, if you get unhomogenized cream, so that's cream from one animal, and compare it to cream which is homogenized, it's like a different thing completely. So anyway, going back to ground beef, you're looking at a mixture of cuts from different animals. Obviously, there's going to be other things like texture. So we were talking about enjoyment. Ground beef is a bit boring, and people that I coach say, you know what I'm actually doing is adding a bit of cheese. I'm adding a bit of this. I'm adding a bit of that. Now, if you're struggling with body composition and you're adding dairy like that, well, it's defeating the object. So going back to taste and going back to the satiety and satisfaction and stuff like that, I would much rather somebody say, I'm really enjoying the braising steak. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer to cook, but I'd rather do that than ground beef and add cheese to make it palatable, or add butter and stuff. So I'm just sort of sitting on the fence and trying to give other people, you know, a different way of looking at it. Yeah, ground beef is cheap, but what if you're adding cheese and you're adding butter and you're adding other stuff? It might end up actually costing slightly more, and also taking you away from your target, which is, if it's a body composition, it might actually be stopping that. So Bill's looking very quizzical there. So sorry if I'm saying something.
Stephen. Stephen, what you're saying is excellent. We're laughing at the chat. Nothing to do with what you're saying at all. Trust me. No.
Okay. All right. A little bit disconcerting.
Yeah, carry on as you are, guys.
That's all right. I thought I was back in my stand-up days, but people didn't laugh then.
I'm just laughing at Jonathan's. Jonathan flexing his policing muscles in the chat. There, it's quite amusing.
Yeah. And the last little thing, just because my teeth are atrocious, I prefer steak because it takes a bit of chewing, you know, and I think that's a good thing to do as you get older, to keep your teeth in good shape, to actually have a good old chew on a bit of steak rather than ground beef.
Cool. I don't know. I think Stephen's covered that a lot. I think there are so many cheap cuts you can get that you don't have to get ground beef all the time. We eat it quite a bit because the kids like burgers. I eat ground beef either done in a bit of tallow, but I put bone broth in it and the little crispy bits at the end of the making of the tallow, and a bit of salt, bit of white pepper, and that makes it really nice, like an instant stew. But I also have it when I want toast. And I haven't had bread since 2009, but every now and again you want that crunch. So I'll do burgers in the air fryer, then split them flat ways, open them up, do them again so that they're really crispy. There's probably no nutrition left, but they're a great bed for loads of runny egg yolks. And once in a blue moon, I crave that. And there's nothing quite like ground beef for doing that. You can't ruin a steak like that. So, you know, I'd say that some of the cheap cuts, I've got some, Stephen mentioned a few of them, but shin beef is fantastic. Snip that up. I made a casserole today with that, with some bone broth and just that slow done in the oven. You put that in the oven and try and roast it, come out like a flip-flop. It's probably the only 2 pieces of meat I've thrown away in like 9 years. It was inedible. But if you do it really slow as a casserole, it's absolutely delicious. So there's loads of things you can eat apart from ribeye steak. Just a bit of imagination, and you're done. There you go. Oh,
good job.
One thing nobody's mentioned: histamines, possibly from ground beef. You have sort of a histamine.
That's what I was getting round, but then I lost track of because I was looking at the chat. Because I was talking about the taurine, the aging. Yeah. Good shout. Yeah, cheers for that, Phil.
Cool. There you go.
biggest issue probably is the lack of taurine, really. I think the ratio of nutrients isn't all that much different, you know, if you're eating ground beef every day. I don't personally get on with it too well. I don't like the rendered fats. I think when you go through a period of time where you eat, you know, a lot of steaks, I pretty much have a steak a day, even if it's just a bit of sirloin, a bit of ribeye, and then add other things that are cheaper. You know, I mean, I had tongue today that was given to me. I had tongue and almost a whole slab of butter. So that was my main meal today, and an egg yolk. That was basically it, me done. I had ground beef burgers the other day. I think I mixed about 4 egg yolks into 500 grams of 20% fat beef and added some bacon and a very thin slice of cheese. But it's funny. I mean, I sort of crave it and then I eat it and I think, I don't think I could do this every day. That's just me, you know. So I just kind of prioritize with my money on meat. So it might look like I'm made of money. If you looked at my account, you'd see I'm not made of money. I just make it happen. It is my absolute #1 priority. I don't spend money on apps, clothes, sporting events. Zero. I don't go out, have no social life. I don't smoke. I don't drink. But I feel good, and I wouldn't change it. You know, that these are my priorities now. Is high quality food. And every time, every now and again, you know, you'll be in the store and you'll grab like a conventional bit of meat, or like I'll say I'll have a bit of ground beef, and then I'm like, nah, I'm not really enjoying it. That's just me, you know. But it's all covered, really. You know, I think you can get the same results unless you're super sensitive. And you're over rendering the fat and you're drinking that fat and you're wondering why you feel a little bit overwhelmed maybe an hour or so later. I don't do well on rendered fat, even pork fat or anything in the slow cooker now. I'm not doing so well with things in the slow cooker. So it's amazing how we evolve. I felt great eating short ribs and oxtail like once or twice a week, and now I don't really fancy it. So I pretty much exclusively eat steaks, egg yolks, butter, bone marrow, fish once a week, and high quality pork once a week. That's it.
Excellent. We'll move on to the next question now. If I can find one. There we go. We are all one. I love the sky in your background. Very delightful red sky at night. Absolutely stunning. I'm 7 months in on the carnivore diet, I'm guessing, and have felt great up to this point. I don't have as much energy and I'm experiencing constipation. I'm still eating the same stuff since starting. So theoretically, the intervention hasn't changed, but the biology has changed. The tolerance has changed. That seems to be the bottleneck. So what's going on with your body right now, which is stopping you from potentially digesting this food the way you'd like it? Ruling out obvious things like, you know, you're not eating the fat that comes with the meat, you're leaving it in the pan, stuff like that. I mean, I'm going to give this question to the guys because they'll probably have some much better insights than me. So if we go round, maybe start Phil. What's your take on the constipation side of things on the carnivore diet?
I've never had it. I kind of go the other way, or I always used to in my plant-based eating days. I'm not really prone to constipation, but in my experience, generally it sorts itself out if you just up the fats. Maybe your body's asking for some more fats. Most of the time that works. Short term, a little bit of magnesium shit rate, maybe something like that to get it moving, but maybe even electrolytes and salt, you know, doing some salt shots or whatever, getting some more salt in water. But the main thing to me is a load of fat. I mean, if somebody eats too much fat, they generally have the runs, or some of the expressions that were coming up here when I mentioned Armageddon. There were some good ones. But yeah, just, I don't know. Anybody got any other ideas? To me, it's of, and also lack of exercise. I find, you know, even a bit of rebounding or something, or just, you know, jumping up and down on a rebounder, but mostly getting enough fat in. Stephen?
Yeah, sorry, when you said anyone else, I thought you wanted someone to jump in. Firstly, I would question, is it constipation or are you going less? That's one of the things, because if your body, as Jonathan said, your biology changes, you might be absorbing more stuff and therefore producing less waste. Therefore, you might be thinking it's constipation. Constipation, you know, is it difficult? Are you pushing? Is it difficult to do that, or is it just the frequency you're worried about? Because some people go from once a day to like twice a week, and there's absolutely nothing wrong there. It's just that everything they're eating is ending up as part of their body, their structure, rather than going down the toilet. Yeah, more fat is an interesting one. It could be something you're eating that's bunging you up. Cheese can cause constipation for some people. So even if you were doing okay when you began, again, going back to Jonathan, your biology changing, you know, when you go from one type of diet to this way of eating, your body loves it at first. Not always, but, you know, it does tend to sort of say, yeah, this is good. We've got enough fats, we've got enough proteins. And then it starts to adapt to how we should be. That's the other thing that you need to remember. We're not adapting to the carnivore diet. We've adapted to the wrong way of eating. This is the proper human diet. I mean, that's a great phrase from Ken Berry. I think we should all sort of adopt something like that. Species appropriate, whatever you want to say. So we're actually resetting, going back to normal, rebooting, however you want to look at it. So if you were, say, pooping 3 times, you know, a day as a vegan or vegetarian, that isn't normal. That's what you adapted to because you were eating stuff that you couldn't assimilate into your body. So I would definitely make sure it is actually constipation that you're talking about. If it's just less frequency, that might be different. But yeah, to get things moving, magnesium shit rate, which is my gag, by the way, but I'm glad it's adopted. And, you know, more fats, definitely, that's good. Or less cheese, that will work as well.
Covered. You've covered it, guys. Definitely try the fat. But yeah, couldn't agree more. So many people say about constipation, and I'm always wondering, are you just going less and you're in your head about it, or are you actually feeling a physical adverse response, like, you know, negativity, strain, opening bowels, discomfort, some pain, and obstruction, an indication that there's a blockage of some sort? Because you wouldn't really get a blockage if you're only eating carnivorous foods unless you are just chowing down on immense amounts of cheese. So yeah, you've covered it, guys.
There's 3 more things I'd like to mention, which are very, very narrow things, but they could be useful to know. So our gut microbiome does take up a lot of the flora, or should I say bacteria, of what we do around us, what's around us. So my bed's over there. If I don't change the sheets for a few days or a week, okay, maybe my bacteria inside my body will then change because of that. Have you changed something? Are you in a different house? Is there more mold in your house? That could impact your gut microbiome. Other things, are you salting your food less between the months? You know, depending on seasonality, you might have more salt some months than not, because you need to be more hydrated or less hydrated. Maybe you're sweating less, maybe your activity is a bit different. So the diet is one thing, but there's 2 other things here. So you've got the activity side of it, the salt and the hydration, and you've also got the surroundings of you, you know, the terrain, I guess. And there was one more thing. If you do get yourself into a tricky situation, and the magnesium shit rate, as Stephen says, doesn't work, one thing you can try doing, and I'm going to get bollocking for this, but it's worked every time. Every single damn time. Have a small portion of fruit. So, a bit of mango. Something you can tolerate that you digest well. A banana. You know, something which is high sugar, and ideally as low fiber as possible. Not green, not, you know, unripe, that sort of thing. Ideally skin it, things like that. Insulin will increase gastric motility. So like Stephen said about, you know, going for a 3 or 4 craps a day on a veggie diet, you can actually do the same thing on a carnivore diet. You just do it in a short term. And I've gotten so many people out of tricky situations where they've been, you know, near enough ringing up the ER. And I've said, well, try the magnesium. Did it work? No. Okay. Well, the next step is you're going to be getting a teaspoon up your ass to get the brick out. Honestly, that's what people do. That's how you get it out sometimes. Don't do it. It's dangerous. But yeah, the fruit would work for a lot of people. It forces the muscles in your bowel to contract, because the sense that high sugar, that high volume is about to come through. Everything expands. Moisture gets down there. The magnesium will draw moisture to the stool, and it also draw how do you put it? Loosen up the bowels, so it will allow the movement to go through. So that is an effective intervention once you've ruled out everything else. Some people, they have a bit of mango and they're fucked. They're addicted as hell, and they just go back to it and do a pool salad, you know. Meat, fruit, honey, and a load of testicles. Apparently.
Just,
there we go.
It's not a three a day isn't enough for vegans, isn't it? Doesn't Dr. Gregor recommend a daily dozen?
Dozen. It has to be a dozen.
A
One dozen.
Daily dozen dumps, isn't it? Or is that food or something? Plants? I don't know. I always think it's dumps. Anyway,
Could do
Guys, I did the Paul Saladino as an experiment. I did the meat, fruit, honey diet thing about 9 months to a year ago. Rubbish. Did it for 3 days. Training was worse. I felt like shit. I was expecting that, but I did the intervention so no one can say, yeah, but you don't know how much better you'll feel with a bit of fruit in. I felt much worse. Cause and effect. So there we go. There we go. But we might move on to the next question now, unless anyone's got any other takes on it at all, and we've missed anything. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. So speed is probably the last one, guys, because we're running out of time. Big time. Big time. Is butter enough to make up for lack of fat in diet, or beef fat absolutely necessary? I know Phil's already given his take on this. I'll give my quick take. I'd say at least half, or roughly half, of my fat intake over the past 4.5 years of being carnivore has been from eating butter. I think the staple of the diet should be the saturated fat from animals. Yes, from the meat and fat from animals. But I have a higher energy demand. I have a higher mass substrate of fat demand than most people. So I can get away with pushing that ceiling a bit higher in terms of butter as a fat. But my body tolerates fat really, really well. When I have it versus don't, it's very obvious to me. I feel better with it. Then again, if you're in the autoimmune side of things, you might feel like trash, so it might not help you at all. Stephen, what's your take on using butter as like a kind of substitute for fat in the diet? And one more thing. With my clients, I find that if they have, say, 80-20 gram beef, I know damn well they're not the most effective at tracking their food intake. What I might do is Phil's technique almost, which is have the beef, the leaner beef, maybe 95%, 90%, add butter to it or add tallow to it. That's what I find is quite effective, because therefore you're adding the fat on top of it. You're not rendering it all on a pan. Then you're forgetting about it. Then you're eating much leaner than what you think you are. So that's one little top tip. But yeah, sorry, Stephen, Karen.
That's okay. Is butter enough? Well, if you add some butter and everything goes hunky-dory, then it probably is. If you add butter and everything isn't hunky-dory, I would look at adding some tallow. Absolutely. It really is individual. It's a great question because it's really pushed, isn't it, the stick of butter? But actually, you know, if you can't tolerate lactose, if dairy is problematic in other areas, you might be better off dumping the butter completely and using beef fat. I think it's just individual. I think you just go experiment, trial and error.
Agreed.
Cool.
Agree.
Listen, just before we go, because I've done a real interesting experiment this week, could we just do that Berkey water filter question from the Fox? Because there's something I've got to say that's quite interesting.
Yeah, just very, very quickly. 1 minute,
no,
go.
Really fast.
1 minute, go.
Water filters, okay? Do they work? I decide I've got a distiller. I put tap water in it and a load of gunk gets left, right? I've never thought to put filtered water in. So I tried it this week. I put filtered water in. I distilled it. There was 60% at least the same amount of gunk. I also put glass bottled spring water through. And to my horror, there was probably about 30% of the gunk. What is that gunk? I don't know, but I don't think filters work that well. There we go. That was my experiment.
Interesting. Right. Apologies for the 8 or 9 questions we do have in the chat, but we do have to go, guys. It's 1 hour every Monday,
Okay.
Tuesday, 7 p.m. UK time. So yeah, you get us an hour every Tuesday for an hour, which is excellent. Hopefully next week we might be joined by Richard, maybe Ben. Who knows? Who knows? We'll answer all your questions then. But thank you very much for joining. What I'll also do now is I'll hide what's currently on the screen if I could find a button for it. Is there a button?
While you're looking for the button, I'm going to say to Kevin, if you've not found anybody dying from cardio, then you're not very good at searching the internet. Look up David Seif, London Marathon. Look up Steve Trickett, Ottawa Marathon. Look up Jim Fix, very famous runner who died jogging at 52. You need to do better research, mate. You don't come on with a categorical statement. You can't back up.
You run every day like it's a religion, you know, and will die, and they won't. they died because of cardio. You know, that it's going to happen all the time, every day.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
I'm going to give some summarizing thought. Yeah.
Yeah. I've looked it up. No one has died of cardio. Well, you haven't looked it up properly. Sorry. It makes me cross. Because you can't
a lot of people don't necessarily die in cardio. I mean, people don't necessarily always die on the track.
Yeah.
It's the other stuff that happens. It's, you know, again, red herring, misrepresentation of what we said again. And that's why I blocked him. That's why I got rid of him from my channel, because he's rude, disrespectful, talking nonsense, gibberish to other channel members, people that pay to watch my channel. And for what? For what benefit? What benefit does having someone channel that's negative, rude, and puts out misinformation have to me? Zero. I'm not obligated to answer your questions all the time. If I have a query, and I mean, Stephen was quite completely right. I explain myself perfectly clear. Steve made his point, Lee did, Phil did. And then if I say, oh, you're obviously, what was it? I think he said I was triggered. No, I'm responding to your arsehole comment. And if you don't like it, that's tough titty. Get on with it. Get a life and move on. Remember, we're providing you a free service, guys. We've had a total of, I believe it's like £5 in super chats, which we're very grateful for. We do not ask people to actually give us super chats, but it's very helpful. We're donating our time to you to help you with our experience. Between the four of us, we've spoken to thousands of carnivores who understand this a lot better than the average person that's watching this video. Generally speaking, I don't know how many experts watching this, because I can't watch a stream of 110 people that are currently watching right now. But on that note, I'll say thank you very much for watching. And if you do enjoy content, hit like, keep involving yourself in the algorithm, leave comments below the videos, subscribe to all our stuff. And if you want to leave a super chat, do. If you want to be rude to us, well, I'm not tolerating it. These guys can do whatever they want. It's completely their prerogative. But you'll be blocked from my channel immediately, like the bitch-ass fucker you are. And if you don't like it, again, like I said, tough titty.